Okay, so hello friends. As we discussed in the previous tutorial about this MVC architecture, the basic MVC architecture, in this tutorial we will be focusing on the Spring MVC architecture. Spring MVC architecture is a web application development framework which is used to develop the loosely coupled web applications. Now the question is, why only we go for Spring MVC architecture as we have other MVC architectures also available. It's not that we can't use them, obviously we can, but there is an important feature involved in Spring MVC architecture, that is the core feature of dependency injection or inversion of control, which you all are aware of. So because of these feature only we go for Spring MVC architecture to develop the web application. Let's study about the architecture of Spring MVC framework. In this architecture, we have 5 components. The first is the front controller. This is the main component which manages the entire flow of my web application. Whenever a user hits a URL, the request is first forwarded to the front controller, and from there we prepare the response for the user and provide it back to the client. Now this front controller take care of the handler mapper to scan the URL and tell which model class I need to call for the data. It's not a simple application. We are writing an enterprise application, so we are having multiple model classes with the data available in them. Now to decide which particular model class we need to call, we take care of the handler mapper. So it's a helper to a front controller which tells which model class will be providing us the exact data for the requested URL. We can call it a controller also. We can also call it a model here. It's a model class only. Next, this model class will not only return the data to the front controller, but along with the data, it will tell the view name also, which will help to format the data and make it in a presentable format for the user. Remember one thing, it's not returning the view address. View address means not the location where the view is present in my application, but only the view name. So to know the address of the view where it is located in my application, we need to take care of another helper class that is known as view resolver. So front controller take care of this helper class view resolver to determine at which location my view is present. Once it get the address of the view, it goes to that view and that view prepare as the HTML response for the user, and that is returned to the front controller, and finally the front controller returns the response back to the client. So Spring is taking help of many helper classes to give the appropriate response to the user. Like in MVC architecture, we don't have any helper classes, but Spring MVC take help of many helper classes. So let's understand this in more detail with the help of a pictorial representation of the Spring MVC architecture. See here, this is the user. It will be hitting the URL on my browser for which web page he or she wants the data. So that URL goes to my front controller. As discussed, this is the one which manages entire flow of my application. Now it doesn't know which, as there are many model classes, we'll have one more model class over here, one class here, one this. So now to decide which particular model class it need to call, it take care of help of handler mapper. It pass the requested URL to the handler mapper. Handler mapper scans the URL and tell that this is the model class which will be giving you the appropriate data for the requested URL. So front controller goes to that model class and gets the data and the view name which will make this data in a presentable format. It's again going back to front controller. So you just see one thing, that everything come back to front controller, goes through front controller only, whichever component we call further. Now this front controller has got the data and the view name, so it goes to view resolver to ask for the address where the view is located in my application. This view resolver will give the address to the front controller and then front controller finally goes to that particular view which is being written using JSP or Velocity or any other technology, and that view is being now finally this HTML response only. So this HTML response is returned back to the user. That is why everything is bi-directional over here. First user requesting the controller for the response and it's giving it back to the user. So this is my controller component in MVC, and this is my model component, and this is my view component, and this handler mapper and the view resolver are my helper classes to the Spring MVC architecture, which helps Spring MVC determining which model or which view it need to call. So we have many handler mappers available in Spring MVC architecture. Similarly, we have many view resolvers. So we'll be discussing it when we'll be creating a first Spring MVC application. There we'll also see the which front controller or the it will be a ready-made controller because it's a framework. So which ready-made controller Spring MVC provide us with so that we can manage the entire flow easily. So we'll be discussing it in the next tutorial when we'll be creating a first Spring MVC application. Okay, thank you.